Well, I will note, this is a topic that I happen to have more than a little bit of history with. Before I was elected to the Senate, I was the Solicitor General of the state of Texas, the chief lawyer for the state in front of the United States Supreme Court. I served in that role 5.5 years, and over again, Texas led the nation defending conservative principles before the U.S. Supreme Court.
Great.
We defended the Ten Commandments monument on the state capitol grounds and won 5-4. We defended the Pledge of Allegiance, the words "one nation under God," and won unanimously. We defended the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, and won 5-4. We defended New Hampshire's parental notification law before the U.S. Supreme Court and won unanimously. But of all the battles, the biggest was a case called Medellin versus Texas. Medellin began with a horrific crime. 2 teenage girls who were murdered in Houston. And the case took a very, very strange turn because the World Court, the judicial arm of the United Nations, issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers across this country. It was the first time in history a foreign court has tried to bind the U.S. justice system. I argued Medellin before the Supreme Court twice. On the other side was the World Court, the United Nations, and 90 foreign nations that came in against the state of Texas. Also on the other side, I'm sorry to tell you, was the President of the United States. And it was not President Obama. It was President George W. Bush. Now listen, I think George Bush is a good man. He's an honorable man. But in this instance, he signed a 2-paragraph order that attempted to order the state courts to obey the World Court. Now I got to admit, it's a fairly unusual situation for the state of Texas to be litigating against the President of the United States, who was a Texan, who was the former governor of Texas, who was a Republican and a friend. Yet I sat down with our Attorney General, and I'm proud that twice I stood before the U.S. Supreme Court with George W. Bush's lawyer on the other side, and we argued, number one, that the United Nations and the World Court has no authority over our justice system. That's right. And number two, that no President of the United States, Democrat or Republican, can give up the sovereignty of the American people. And we won 6-3. So this Iran deal matters for a lot of reasons. It is an acute threat to our national security. A nuclear Iran is an existential threat to the nation of Israel. And I would note, by the way, existential doesn't mean a Frenchman in black chain smoking. I like that because it takes a second. There's kind of a half-second delay. It means quite literally going to the existence of the nation of Israel. But it is also a grave threat to the national security of this country. Now, New Hampshire is going to play a critical role in the 2016 election. And one thing I would encourage each of you to ask is any candidate who shows up in front of you, either Republican or Democrat, the very simple question: if President Obama negotiates a bad deal with Iran that undermines our national security, that makes it more likely that Iran acquires nuclear weapons, and if he doesn't submit it to Congress, will you repudiate that agreement in January of 2017?
That's right. That's me.
And any candidate who is not willing to say yes, who is not willing to put the vital national security of this country above partisan interest, is not fit to be the commander-in-chief of this country.